Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are diving deep into the fascinating story of one of the most iconic and widely collected coins in American history, the Washington quarter dollar, a coin that is far more than just 25 cents because it represents American heritage, leadership, artistry, and decades of change in the nation's economy and coinage system. And to truly understand why the Washington quarter holds such a powerful place in U.S. numismatics, we must travel back to the early 20th century when the United States was preparing to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the nation's first president and a symbol of unity, independence, and leadership, as plans were being made in the early 1930s to honor Washington with a special commemorative coin, originally intended to be a one-year issue. But due to its strong public acceptance and practical design, it eventually became a permanent part of American circulating coinage, replacing the standing Liberty quarter which had been in production since 1916. And this transition marked a major moment in U.S. coin history because it blended commemoration with everyday use, allowing millions of Americans to carry an image of George Washington in their pockets during the difficult years of the Great Depression, a time when coins were not just money but symbols of stability and trust. And the obverse design of the Washington quarter was created by sculptor John Flanagan, who based his portrait on a bust of Washington created by Jean-Antoine Houdon in 1786, widely regarded as the most accurate likeness of Washington ever made. And this choice gave the coin a realistic and dignified appearance, showing Washington facing left with a calm but determined expression, surrounded by the inscriptions Liberty at the top, In God We Trust to the left, and the date at the bottom, while the reverse design featured a proud American bald eagle perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches beneath, symbolizing strength and peace, with the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and quarter dollar completing the powerful national imagery. And when the coin was first released in 1932, it was struck only at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, making the first year especially important to collectors today, as it marked the birth of a coin that would go on to circulate for decades and witness some of the most important moments in U.S. history, including World War II, the post-war boom, the Cold War era, and massive changes in metal composition, production technology, and minting practices. And originally the Washington quarter was struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, giving it intrinsic value beyond its face value, a feature that would later play a crucial role in its collectability when silver prices rose dramatically in the 1960s, leading to the historic decision in 1965 to remove silver from circulating quarters and replace it with a copper-nickel-clad composition, a change that forever divided Washington quarters into two major eras, silver and clad, each with its own appeal, history, and collector following. And throughout its long lifespan, the Washington quarter has served not only as everyday currency but also as a canvas for artistic and commemorative evolution, eventually inspiring the highly popular 50-state quarters program launched in 1999, which transformed the reverse designs and reignited public interest in coin collecting across the United States, bringing millions of new collectors into the hobby and ensuring that the legacy of the Washington quarter would continue well into the modern era, making it a coin that connects generations, history, art, and value all in one small but powerful piece of metal. The Washington quarter dollar continued its journey through American history as a silent witness to changing times, evolving minting techniques, and shifting national priorities, and as the years passed after its 1932 debut, the coin became deeply embedded in everyday American life, circulating through the hands of factory workers, soldiers, shopkeepers, and families during some of the most challenging and transformative decades of the 20th century, particularly during the Great Depression and World War II, when coins were often saved, hoarded, or repurposed due to economic uncertainty and metal shortages. Yet the Washington quarter remained a trusted and familiar presence, and during World War II the demand for metal placed extraordinary pressure on the U.S. Mint, leading to changes in production priorities, increased mintages, and occasional quality variations that today fascinate collectors who study die wear, strike strength, and subtle design differences. And despite these pressures, the Washington quarter retained its strong patriotic symbolism, with the eagle on the reverse reinforcing national strength at a time when morale was critical. And as the post-war era began and the United States entered a period of economic growth and industrial expansion, the quarter became more widely circulated than ever before, used heavily in commerce, transportation, and vending machines, making it one of the most handled coins in the nation, which naturally led to extensive wear on most surviving examples, a factor that dramatically influences condition rarity today, because while millions were minted each year, finding well-preserved, high-grade examples from the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s is far more difficult than raw mintage numbers suggest, especially for coins struck at branch mints like Denver and San Francisco where quality control sometimes varied. And collectors today pay close attention to details such as Washington's hair curls above the ear, the sharpness of the eagle's feathers, and the clarity of inscriptions to determine a coin's grade and desirability, and as the 1950s and early 1960s progressed, the rising price of silver began to quietly change the destiny of the Washington quarter, because the intrinsic value of its silver content approached and eventually exceeded its face value, prompting the public to pull silver coins out of circulation and save them, melt them, or trade them as bullion, which led to widespread coin shortages and ultimately forced the U.S. government to make one of the most important decisions in modern coinage history, the removal of silver from circulating quarters beginning in 1965, marking the end of the classic silver Washington quarter era and the beginning of the copper-nickel-clad era, a transition that fundamentally altered how Americans viewed their money, shifting coins from precious metal objects to purely fiduciary instruments. Yet even after this dramatic change, the Washington quarter continued unchanged in design for decades, maintaining John Flanagan's iconic portrait and reinforcing continuity in American coinage, while behind the scenes the Mint refined production methods, improved strike consistency, and expanded output to meet the needs of a growing population, ensuring that the Washington quarter remained one of the most recognizable and trusted coins in U.S. history, bridging the gap between America's silver coin past and its modern monetary system. As the Washington quarter entered the modern era, its role evolved from a silver-backed workhorse of daily commerce into a mass-produced clad coin that reflected the realities of a changing economy, and beginning in 1965 the shift to a copper-nickel composition fundamentally transformed not only the physical makeup of the coin but also the psychology of the public. Because for the first time in generations, Americans were spending quarters that no longer contained precious metal, which initially caused confusion, hoarding of older silver issues, and even distrust toward new coins. Yet over time the clad Washington quarter became fully accepted and widely used, especially as inflation increased the need for higher denomination coins in everyday transactions such as parking meters, laundromats, toll booths, and vending machines, making the quarter one of the most practical and heavily circulated coins in the United States. And throughout the late 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, production numbers climbed dramatically as the Mint struggled to keep pace with demand, resulting in billions of coins struck across Philadelphia and Denver, with San Francisco transitioning primarily to proof coinage, which introduced a new dimension of collectability for the Washington quarter series, because proof issues featured sharper strikes, mirror-like fields, and frosted devices that highlighted Flanagan design in a way never seen in circulation strikes, drawing collectors who appreciated both artistry and precision. And during this period subtle changes such as mint mark placement, strike quality, and die varieties became areas of interest for advanced collectors, while the general public continued to use the coin without a second thought, unaware that some dates and mint combinations would later become condition rarities due to poor strikes or heavy circulation. And as the nation approached the bicentennial of American independence, the Washington quarter once again became a symbol of national celebration, culminating in the special 1975 to 1976 bicentennial quarter featuring a colonial drummer on the reverse, a dramatic departure from the traditional eagle design, which captured public imagination and encouraged millions of Americans to start checking their change for commemorative coins, sparking a renewed interest in coin collecting that extended far beyond the bicentennial itself. And although the Washington portrait remained on the obverse, the temporary redesign demonstrated the flexibility and enduring relevance of the quarter as a storytelling medium, capable of honoring both the nation's founding and its ongoing evolution. And this period cemented the Washington quarter's status not merely as currency, but as a cultural artifact that reflects America's history, priorities, and artistic choices across generations. As the decades progressed, the Washington quarter quietly transformed into one of the most influential canvases in modern American numismatics, particularly as the U.S. Mint began to recognize the coin's unmatched reach and visibility among the public, which ultimately led to ambitious programs designed to educate, commemorate, and inspire through circulating coinage. And this vision fully materialized with the launch of the 50-state quarters program in 1999, a historic initiative that redefined how Americans interacted with their money by honoring each state in the order of its admission to the Union, turning the reverse of the Washington quarter into a rotating gallery of state pride, history, landmarks, and symbols, while maintaining the familiar obverse portrait of George Washington that anchored the series in tradition. And this balance between continuity and innovation proved extraordinarily successful, as millions of people who had never collected coins before suddenly began saving quarters from their change, filling folders, discussing designs, and learning geography and history through everyday transactions. And the sheer scale of production during this era was unprecedented, with tens of billions of state quarters struck across Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Yet within this ocean of coins certain issues emerged as condition rarities, particularly in high mint state grades, where weak strikes, bag marks, and improper handling reduced the number of pristine survivors, making top-graded examples surprisingly valuable despite enormous mintages. And beyond the states themselves, the program demonstrated the Washington Quarter's adaptability as a long-term series capable of continuous reinvention without losing its core identity, paving the way for subsequent programs such as the District of Columbia and U.S. Territories Quarters, the America the Beautiful Quarter series, and later special issues that continued to tell the story of America's landscapes, heritage sites, and natural wonders, all while retaining Washington's dignified portrait as a constant reminder of the nation's founding principles. And through these transformations, the quarter evolved from a simple silver coin into an educational tool, a collectible phenomenon, and a symbol of national unity expressed through regional diversity, reinforcing its position as one of the most successful and widely recognized coin designs in U.S. history. As collectors moved deeper into the modern era of the Washington Quarter, attention increasingly shifted from broad historical themes to the subtle details that separate ordinary circulation pieces from coins of exceptional rarity and value. And this is where mint errors, transitional varieties, and striking anomalies began to define the most exciting segment of the series. Because despite the quarter being produced in massive quantities, the minting process itself was never perfect, leading to double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, wrong metal errors, and dramatic die breaks that transformed everyday quarters into highly sought-after collectibles, particularly during periods of major change such as the 1965 transition from silver to copper-nickel-clad composition, when experimental planchets and minting confusion resulted in rare wrong planchet strikes that today command astonishing prices at auction. And similarly, the late 1970s and early 1980s saw quality control challenges that produced strong double die reverses and obverse, some of which went unnoticed for years before sharp-eyed collectors identified them, while proof quarters struck at San Francisco introduced their own category of desirability, especially when featuring deep cameo contrast or unexpected errors such as missing mint marks, repunched mint marks from earlier decades, or unusual die polish lines that created distinctive visual patterns. And as third-party grading services emerged and standardized the evaluation of condition and authenticity, the Washington Quarter market matured into a sophisticated field where strike quality, luster, eye appeal, and population data became just as important as mintage numbers, pushing elite examples into five-figure territory even when the base coin itself was common. And this growing complexity elevated the Washington Quarter from a simple commemorative design into a dynamic collecting universe where history, craftsmanship, error discovery, and market demand intersect, ensuring that even after decades of production, the series continues to offer new discoveries and fresh excitement for collectors at every level. As the Washington Quarter continues to evolve in the eyes of collectors and investors alike, its long-term appeal rests on a powerful combination of historical importance, artistic consistency, and an ever-expanding universe of collectible varieties that reward patience and knowledge, because while many examples still trade at face value, the coins that rise above the ordinary are those defined by exceptional preservation, rare minting circumstances, or dramatic visual character, such as blazing uncirculated silver issues with untouched luster, sharply struck early-date proofs with deep mirrored fields, and modern-clad quarters that display rare errors or ultra-high grades certified in extremely small populations. And auction records have repeatedly proven that demand for elite Washington quarters remains strong, with top-condition pieces routinely achieving prices that surprise even seasoned collectors, reinforcing the idea that condition rarity can matter more than mintage alone, while registry set competition has further intensified interest by encouraging collectors to pursue the finest known examples of each date and mint, creating upward pressure on prices and elevating the status of the series within the broader numismatic community. And beyond monetary value, the Washington Quarter holds cultural significance as one of the longest-running designs in United States coinage, reflecting changing minting technology, economic transitions, and public attitudes toward national symbols across generations, making each coin not just a piece of metal but a tangible link to American history, craftsmanship, and everyday life. And whether discovered in circulation, inherited through family collections, or acquired through careful selection at shows and auctions, the Washington Quarter continues to prove that even the most familiar coins can hold extraordinary stories and hidden potential for those willing to look closely, study deeply, and collect thoughtfully, reminding us that numismatics is not just about rarity or price but about curiosity, preservation, and the joy of uncovering value where others see only spare change. And that enduring charm is precisely why the Washington Quarter remains a cornerstone of coin collecting today. Thanks for watching.